Pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everybody, happy March. We'll start with the approval of the minutes from the February 2nd meeting. Is there a motion to approve minutes? So moved. Second? Second. Any discussion or edits? Hearing none, all in favor?
I need to abstain, so.
Yes, sorry, abstention, John,
Yeah,
thank you.
that's okay.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the financial report.
Okay,
Remember.
yes, the financials are tightening up, as we reach the end of the year. The larger reason for that is, special ed tuitions, special ed transportation, substitutes. We have several people on long-term leaves. We are having a town article, for the special ed tuitions, and as you know, when you look at the next year's budget, the increase in tuitions becomes even more self-evident, with the budgeting for next year. So, we will continue to be as frugal as possible, but like I said, it is tightening in those areas.
Thank you.
Just one question about the special ed tuition. That means a pretty steep jump from last month, like 170,000. Do we have more placements, or is that just?
From were you at 170 short last time?
No, the jump, so the budget balance, where it currently says 289,935.
Nope, I don't see where you are.
So I am
Page
at.
3.
Oh, that was spent. Right, the balance,
Mhm.
okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
So last month, we were at, like 110,000.
Yeah, there were a couple of tuitions that had not been encumbered yet. But we knew all along that we were gonna be even in more trouble on this line, and which is now clearly showing, ties out with what, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was gonna jump back.
Cause there were a
to
couple
50,000.
more,
okay,
there were a couple
okay.
more
170.
placements, and this is how we got to about that, close to 200,000 that we think we've done everything we can to get through, but we've still got those struggles. Yep.
Any other questions on the budget? No? All right. Thank you. Next up is communications. I believe this was something that we had asked about.
Yeah, it's a little more than you had asked, as coincidentally, a week later, we were doing these reports, so I thought it would be good to put there as an FYI. We were specifically talking about school choice and who leaves for school choice and for what reasons, or I mean, where they go. So this report shows you all of Sturbridge. So you can see your school as well as the secondary. You see a total of 22 students going to the charter school, all of those are elementary. And the 19 is the total school choice for all. So you can just see your 2, 4, 6, 7. There's only 7 that out of district public schools. That of that 19, 7 of them are Burgesses. Those are school choice. So you've only got 7 students leaving and choosing to go to another public school. And we were talking a little bit about the wheres. So I do have that list. You've got a Dudley Charlton, you've got a Quabog, you've got a Spencer East Brookfield, you've got a couple of Hollands, Southbridge. And typically, as I said last month, a lot of times it's where the parents work and it's convenient for them. And sometimes there's just other, maybe they want a smaller community, but there's not a lot. For a school this size to only have the 7 going out for school choice is awesome. The charters are different, and that number is probably where Sturbridge will end up for the next few years, because they do have a cap.
What are collaboratives?
For example, you've got a
Like
couple of
grade 4 one.
they're your collaborative, special ed placements.
Okay.
Yeah.
which is different than like the number that we see in the financial report.
Yeah, so when we're dealing with,
Because
You-
it's all in our budget regardless of
Correct.
the grade.
correct.
That's it, yeah,
Yes.
okay. Is everyone else clear on that?
Oh, I think the other thing circled, I noted here was, I think that actually the first question was more homeschool.
It was the
choice.
homeschoolers that I was
So
curious
you can
about.
see the total of, and there's certainly a little larger numbers at the elementary, but some of them
Yeah.
continue at the secondary.
I mean, 7 sophomores, I mean, God bless those
Yep,
parents.
I know, right? So, exactly. So that's really just FYI, kind of the bigger picture, and, some of these, you've got your homeschool, and then you've got a last column, you've got a handful that choose to attend private schools.
Yeah. Okay, this is great, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions on this report? Thank you. We are up to the principal report. Kelly?
Hello, everyone. As you can see, our overall enrollment continues to inch up. I want to thank Amy Cantwell and the whole reading department for organizing our annual Read Across America event, which took place today. It was wonderful to see so many community members, current administrators, and past staff members. It was a great event. Thank you so much, Amy and Delane. Curriculum and instruction, grades are closing for the second trimester very soon. Parent-teacher conferences will be held at the end of the month. Tuesday is the virtual, the early release, and Thursday will be the in-person. And then we'll reassess from there. MCAS, the upcoming Professional Development Day on Thursday, March 24th, will focus on MCAS training and other school-based activities. You'll see the dates for MCAS for grades 3 through 6, start April 4th and end on May 7th, just with a total of 6 testing days, not counting makeups. Kindergarten registration for the 23-24 school year is ongoing. The screening will take place on May 2nd and 3rd. Other events, the PTO will be hosting, or is hosting, the annual Jogathon from March 20th through the 22nd, but we have started the fundraising. And Jackie, I'm gonna rely on you to remind me. So day 2, we're at around $16,000.
So the thermometer, that's.
You came to the main lobby,
Yeah.
So it was only at 11,500, and Jackie's seeing already 16,000, so we're doing very well, so thank you, everybody. The Burgess, the annual Burgess Talent Show, dates are as follows, those are coming. Very happy to see that. Great department and grade level updates, I'll let you peruse all of those at your leisure. We do have an author visit coming up on March 29th. And big part of the department update is maintenance, and you'll see there's been a lot of conversation and a lot of motion towards looking at the possibility of a multi-purpose field. In the back, Paul Guerin has been attending select board meetings and working with everybody to try to capture this, so there's a good detailed report there for your leisure.
Any questions, Mrs. Kelly, discussion on that report? No? Thank you. Superintendent's report.
We are cruising along.
are.
We have nearly everything done before we have to recess. Awesome. We'll do a few policies afterwards, so we'll hold on that FY '24 vote. After we go into the public hearing, we'll need to come back. Even if we finished everything else, we'll come back into open session and take that vote. Other than that, I don't have a lot, other than the reminder of the school committee retreat, which will probably be an 8 to 12 on March 25th, I think. We'll get an agenda hopefully out soon. And we've had reading across the district today. There's some tomorrow. I love community reading days, so I did a couple today. Got to see kids, which is the best. Other than that, we're cruising along, we're kicking in. March is the long and painful month. We'll be MCASing soon, and there will be no March snow days. Sorry, folks, we've used them up. No, it's,
What are we at?
no, we haven't, we've used all we want to.
No more.
Because at this point in time, we are, but see, that's a myth.
Oh.
That's a myth. Every single day we have snow, we need to add to the other end. So when I say we've used them up, we're on a Friday right now.
Oh,
If we get one more,
Oh, wait.
it's Tuesday, because we can't have school on Monday, Juneteenth. If we get one more, we may as well get three more, because half a day on a Tuesday
No,
is
no.
just not gonna work.
No, thank you.
So, I was warning people a
Summer
month ago when they were
programming.
doing the snow dance, I said, no, it's not time, don't do it. So, that's where we are right now, is on the Friday, and I know March is a tough run with no holidays, no PD days, we're all bracing.
heads down.
Exactly, so, hopefully it'll be uneventful in many ways.
Yes. Okay, great. Thank you. We are up to public access. Yes, public, but no one that wants to get into the access.
They're here for the main event next door.
All right, very good. Subcommittee reports.
We don't, I can't even recall, I don't know that we even met, negotiations has
February.
not met since the last one.
meeting, right.
Hopefully by next meeting, we will have had a meeting and we can plan to report out there.
We've got a couple of.
Actually, we do, by the end of next month, by the next meeting, we definitely will at least start with the teachers.
Yes.
I know we have meetings scheduled with bus drivers, but post-vote. So, next month, we'll plan on updating folks. Yep.
Okay. Tantasco representative. Okay, we met last night.
That was just last night.
I know, we've just been spending so much time together, all of us. Let's see, we had an executive session that we kicked off with that was interesting. We had the student representatives summarizing what's going on in both the tech and the academic divisions. In the tech, some of the highlights were there was a Pro Start culinary competition at Gillette at the end of the month that the culinary and hospitality kids are preparing for, which sounds cool. And they're always doing neat stuff. The freshmen are getting ready to choose their concentration preferences, and we'll be selecting those at the end of next week. In the academic world, lots of busy activities, math team, performing art competitions. There's a spring dance, enchanted garden theme coming up. SAT coaching, just wrapping up winter sports, all that good stuff. From the junior high, very successful dance that they had last month, and I just wanted to give a shout out to whomever did the new traffic routing on the drop off and the pickup, because it was really huge and very
It worked out
innovative
quite
and
well.
way to get people moving.
Mr. Sturgis owns that, it is.
It was, as a parent, it was
One
great.
way or another, someday, he said, I'm gonna get a clean
It
run.
was good, yes,
Yeah.
that was great, very successful in attendance for that. Ski club is all wrapped up and everyone had a great time doing that, even including the sub-zero temperatures earlier in February. They had an internet safer day, at the junior high, which was, an initiative that kind of, we're all just, have decided that we can't have an internet safe day because kids are gonna be on all the things and the TikToks and whatnot. So how can we make it safer and make them aware of the things and the choices that they're making, virtually? So, that was a successful endeavor. Everyone pledged that they were going to use their good judgment on that. And then, Mrs. Boyd had some very exciting news that she shared with us. Do you want to, Sally Sunshine, talk about what you
Sure, I know,
shared?
because
That
I
was
don't get to
very
be Sally
exciting
Sunshine
and
too
it's-
much. I did, and I actually had to sit on it for 3 weeks because I really wanted to put it on.
She knew about it in February.
I was like, Greg, don't tell anyone. But Greg Rosso, our technology director, did get notice 3 weeks ago. He, a number of months ago, applied for a grant through the federal E-rate program, which we get reimbursement for some of our E-rate applicable items each year. But he applied for a Chromebook grant and got for Tantascwa a grant for $700,000, 1,800 Chromebooks, which is a Chromebook per student. So, and the way E-rate works is E-rate does all the work. We won't even physically receive the check, or they send the check right to their Dell Chromebook. So, but that was really a big win. We have been creeping up for a while, trying to get more and more devices into the high school and junior high. we have always, most of the leadership agreed that our target was never really to have to be one-to-one just for the sake of being one-to-one. We don't want to be handing devices out to everyone just because we wanna say they are. But to be able to be sure that we always have enough devices so that every single classroom, anytime they want to have a lesson plan that they need Chromebooks, they have. So this will allow every single classroom to have a cart or a file, however, whatever furniture we're gonna use to house them, of Chromebooks, and then will allow a good, healthy bank, the ones we've purchased in the last year or so, to be a reserve to have any student sign out for the whole year if need be a device. So we're making, every child will have a device if needed. It won't necessarily be one-to-one on day one, take our device, because a lot of students don't need them. But we will have enough, so take a little time to get them and deploy them, but it was a major win, so we're very, very appreciative of Greg finding that opportunity and writing it, so, yeah, it is, so.
And
we're
that
big-
impacts the junior high and high school.
Yep, yep. Yeah, 1,800 students is what those two buildings has this year, and that's what the grant covers Chromebooks for. Yep.
Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so that concludes the report, and we are up to unfinished business. This is a series of policy updates, cleanup
Yep.
that we went over last meeting. So this is our second reading, where we would be making a motion to adopt these policies as they are written now.
And you had two, so the very first one, there was a suggestion request to add, we added that bolded line there,
The
just to
handbook,
point blank say
right.
that the details, the devil's in the details, and the
Mhm.
details are gonna be in
Yeah.
the student handbook. The other thing we did not change, but we investigated. So I know there was a question with all of these equal opportunity and discrimination updates. Acts 2022, chapter 117, which is the reference in most of these updates, does not include proficiency in English language as a protected, non-discriminated class. But it is noted on that school choice policy, which again, you folks don't even have school choice, but we'll have it in case you ever do. And it is, as we did research, it is just something that, again, maybe there are districts out there that has run into a problem in the school choice process, which it shouldn't, because school choice should be a complete lottery. But MASs felt the need to add that in addition to everything else that is. So we left them the way we presented them last month. We at least did the research and now understand why. It should not be included in all the others because it is referencing the Acts 2022, chapter 117.
Okay, so let's start, I will make the motion to approve and adopt upon second reading the following policies: JICA, AC, GBA, GCF, JB, JFBB1, JI, and JLCDD. Discussion on those policies.
JI is new, right? That was the one that we actually said should be new from last time.
If so, I missed that.
I think you had told us last time
Oh.
that it was new. And I think
Was it new last time?
New last,
So,
yeah.
well,
So
so it won't
we
be an
haven't-
amended,
it's not an amendment.
it'll just be
Okay.
second reading. Right,
Yes.
yeah. Yep.
Amend on that. And then also while we're clarifying, I
The
did,
last one is
for the
missing.
group, right, I said
Yeah.
adopt, and you're actually rescinding that last one, JLCDD, so let the minutes reflect that. Okay.
So just, we'll remove, there's dates listed on JI currently, but you'll remove
So before
those.
they get posted, they'll be updated with the dates that we actually took the votes.
Right. I'm just saying there's dates listed for first reading, second reading that were from 2007, but those aren't our
It didn't make
dates.
it, it's someone
Yeah.
else's, got it,
Mhm.
yeah.
And then my only other comment was just going back to proficiency in English language. I'm fine if we don't wanna add it, but Mass General Law does reference it, so on JB, equal educational opportunities, the Mass General Law that's referenced does specifically reference proficiency in English language, so maybe it doesn't need to be called out if it's protected by law.
Yeah. And again, your call, we can put that in there. We asked MASS what the differences were and, yeah. On JB, so,
Which one are you talking about?
JB.
JB.
So equal
I
educational
got you, yep.
opportunities.
Mhm.
And, I'm sorry, Jackie, are you saying that it doesn't reference it, and do we want to
So
add
Mass
it,
General
or-
Law does reference it, so that MGL.
do you know which acts or chapter?
I did look it up, so my arrow is just under Mass General Law 76.5, but it's at the 603 CMR 26.
Mhm.
I looked it up a couple days ago, so I don't specifically remember that, but it did definitely.
So if that's the official legal reference, is that why we're saying we wouldn't need to include it in the body of the policy, because it's being referenced?
We
in
have to
that?
live by the law, yes, I
Right.
mean, either way, I'm happy to add it before posting, but we would be obligated to live by whatever the law
The law
is
is.
anyways.
So does it need a call out? But. Because there's no reason not to add it, then you can list everything else out, even though it's protected by law. So maybe we just add that to the list.
It's fine.
So where we need to
Kind of-
re-vote on that?
It would go, well, and I don't mind calling out that the last words in that that first paragraph does, and all other categories protected by state or federal law, so it's
Yeah.
covered
It's
in
gonna
there.
fall there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that our preference is always to have it be as generic and reference other official documents as possible, just for the,
it is really hard to keep up every
For
time
the-
they, which is why the references are very important.
Right.
To kind of remind us, if something's been updated and we haven't gotten a chance to update our policy.
as long as it's referencing what has been updated.
We still have to
and
live by
where
it,
it's covered.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But it's good to kind of go through the process of cleansing things every now and then and making sure, reminding ourselves of the rules we have to live by.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kristen, can you repeat those letters and numbers, but leave out the ones that went through the energy one? To adopt.
Oh, I'm sorry, the JLCDD,
Yeah.
about the rescinding? What about it? I'm
So
sorry.
we're voting to adopt all of these except for that one, right?
We're rescinding
We're rescinding that
JLCDD
one.
because,
Right.
yeah, we just forgot to rescind that ages ago when we put our very detailed policy in place.
Right.
Yes, so we can take one vote, but Karen will definitely document that the one is new, two of them are new, the rest are amended except for that last one's rescinded.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments on, just discussed, okay. All right, so we will, take a vote, all in favor?
Okay, and then if we can power through these two more before we recess, yay. So these are two, just in us continue to try and look and make, we're now to the point where we're almost to the end of the alphabet. And we are looking at all six to see if we've gotten everything and check everything off. And I think, a while ago, I think Tantascwa did this JICE a number of months ago and we missed this one. So we'd like to put that in as the updates that you see here. They are coming as recommendations from MASS and their legal counsel. And we would like to update that one. Really just kind of cleaner, better language with less editorial stuff. And then JICG is something that we should have rescinded a while ago when we put the new policy is, a global it's a nicotine, deals with the vaping as well as, tobacco use. So we do have that in place. This is, we're just looking to rescind this one.
Okay, okay. All right, so I'll start by making a motion to amend upon first reading policy JICE and to rescind upon first reading policy JICG. Second. Discussion on either of these two policies. Also known as Jackie. Jackie, the floor is yours. Our legal eagle over here. What do you got?
Okay, just one comment on student publications. So the first sentence there where it sets the limits, it feels a little vague. Mass General Law says that it's provided it does not cause any disruption or disorder within the school, so is there a reason we have different language that seems? So
I
where
didn't know it's
Yep,
specifically
so
what
in
language you're talking about.
the first sentence,
Mhm.
where it starts within limitations comparable to those imposed on all citizens, but specifically designed for children and youth in a school setting.
And again, these are policies written by MASs to try and be maybe a little more, you know, it's this fine line between follow the law and make sure folks that can understand them, because they typically go to the policy before the legal. So this is, I think, more of a, I wouldn't call it editorial, it's just a different explanation of making sure, if you want to just quote the law, I'm okay with that. But again, MASs is your organization, actually not mine, so
Yeah.
that's where these come from.
I don't know, what does everyone else think? It feels a little vague to me as to like, what does that really mean, whereas the law sounds.
Well, you're always
a
gonna
little
end
bit
up with vague.
clearer.
You're always gonna end up with, being disruptive to a classroom is vague until you
Subjective. It's
get
subjective.
there and you kind of, hopefully you know it when you see it, what is
School grade
disruptive,
level-
but yeah.
School grade level configuration
Yeah.
would alter, you know, what would be perceived.
So what do you
I was just proposing that we change that language from where it starts with the limitations to directly just say, provided it does not cause any disruption or disorder within the school.
I mean, my opinion is always to kind of stay compliant with what others are adopting, and if this is coming from, the district, then, you know, we're gonna, I'd rather us not be an outlier from the district on this policy, but,
I don't think it's in its where.
yeah. So again, where it's referencing, law that can be updated and referenced, and so that would be what would prevail in this case, versus the wording here.
I appreciate it when it's more
Yeah,
vague.
I mean, the thing is, that if every policy was gonna do nothing but state the law, then we wouldn't need the policies at all. So, but we run into that all the time, and every now and then, we run into a policy where we're like, well, why are we doing it? Because sometimes, especially at the Tantascwa, the concussion policy, the law is listed in the policy, and here's the law, why are we repeating it? It's worth repeating it as is, because some folks will go here before the law. But in general, your policies can be a little broader than just quoting the law. So the reference is certainly important to say that is the content, that's really why we're building this policy, is because of that law.
I'm thinking about Burgess, right? Thinking about what a second grader might overhear an older sibling saying or an adult saying in a setting and bringing that to school, okay? And making, what is publication, right? Like, is it writing on the bathroom wall? Is it actually passing a note? That comment by that second grader needs to be handled differently than the comment made by a sixth grade student here at Burgess. Because there's a lot more intent and knowledge and ability to discern, you know, the inappropriateness of a comment. So I would say, I don't know, that it looks good as it stands right now. And I do agree with having consistency and with the MASC recommendation. we have that to fall back on if we run into some issues, because we have a lot going on. So.
Yeah. Anyone else want to chime in? If not, I think maybe it's fair to, well, again, this is first reading, but if we wanted to, take a vote on that recommended amendment at this point, would that be, reasonable?
You'd need a motion to make an amendment in a second and then vote on that, and I've lost track of what
Yeah.
we've done. We do need to recess though pretty quick, I
Yes.
mean, within 10, 15 seconds,
I mean,
so I don't wanna
it's
rush
also
anyone.
first reading, so I feel like if we want to vote as it is, and then.
Okay, and then if you wanna make a
More
motion
specific.
next time on the second
Yeah.
reading, then we can
And like
hash that
think
out
on that a
then.
little bit more.
Okay. Were there any other comments, or do we wanna, are we feel comfortable moving ahead with going through this on the first reading and then revisiting these? Okay, all right, so, I'll make a motion to, oh,
Yeah, we
sorry,
did
we're
just
in
the work
discussion,
session.
I've
Yeah.
lost track too, okay, all right, all in favor of amending upon first reading JICE and rescinding upon first reading JICG? Okay, thank you.
In review as the chair, we'll
Yes.
call a recess to the
Okay.
meeting at 6:32.
Okay, thank you, calling recess meeting, 6:32 to yes.
If it's yes.
You don't even have to vote.
We don't have to
As
vote
the
on it?
chair
Okay.
simply calls the
All
recess.
right, thank you.
And then we're gonna go down the hall and she will open the public hearing.
Good evening, everyone, 6:36, we'll open the public hearing to review the FY 24 this budget.
All right, hello all. I think all faces are familiar. There's not even new ones out here, which is actually a good thing. You know what, we may have a committee or two member. So if we want to start down with Jackie and just introduce ourselves.
Sure.
Sure. Jackie Pinkley. Lisa Marner.
Jenna Ventatula.
Samantha Kaminsky. Kristen Lee.
Deb Boyd, superintendent.
Kathy Pelly, Burgess Principal.
And Steve Nemberko, Finance Director.
So, Steve, Kathy, and I are going to try and tag team here and go through. I think everyone has the document. Steve will start kind of doing the overall, the pretty picture. Those who love pictures more than the numbers, talk a little bit high level, and then we will get into the document that you have. As we always have in the past, we will do our best to answer the questions before they're asked. And then when we get to the end of each page, we'll certainly ask if there are any other lines that anyone has a question on before we move on. We are absolutely entering one of the more difficult budget seasons that we've had in a while, especially in Sturbridge. Kind of my precursor will be the reminder, or any folks who don't know, we have already put in, school committee voted to put in for an article at the special town meeting for $200,000 to help get through this year's budget because of special ed tuitions. And we'll talk more when we get there. My friends on finance committee probably remember last April, we kind of started, and I was Sally Sunshine at the moment, and that did not work out well. So hopefully we'll get through this year with a little bit more support from the town, but it does set the stage for a number of problems next year. We are a little behind the 8 ball, like everyone else in the state, because the state budget only came out within the last week. So we're all scrambling to try and run numbers and see how good or bad things are. Things are not awesome in Sturbridge, but as always, we have some great seasoned folks who know how to keep Sturbridge financially stable, and will continue to work with you all through this process. So we're gonna make a couple of changes as we go through tonight, but school committee's well aware. We know we may very well be voting a number tonight that we need to keep looking at for the next 2 months and adjust when we know where everything falls. But we will start with Steve, kind of the overall summary.
Okay, I'll start with the pie charts here, and that's at front and back page that I handed out. And the big takeaway from the front page is that couple things. One is box number 2 is a foundation enrollment. What you'll see there is enrollment is creeping back up to pre-pandemic levels. 883 students in the foundation budget. And so with more kids come more costs, naturally. Box 1 and 2 compare the total budgets of FY24 and the total budgets of FY23 by function area. The big takeaway there is that all of your expenses are related to instruction. That is kids, classrooms, teaching, things like that. So this budget does a very good job of putting the money in front of students and those types of operations. Box number 3 is 74% of your budget salaries. Of that 74%, 75.8 is instruction, and the rest are the other types of salary costs going forward. On the back page, you'll see just some line charts there. One is the total budget increase. You'll see that this year we're asking for a 7.4% increase as compared to 2s, 3s, 4s, and in high 17 of 6.8%. So there's been some down years. There's been a couple up years in this one year. And then the second one is percent of regular operational increases. So this tells a story of how much of the increase is for regular operations. You see that 3.7% is for our regular operations, meaning that the remainder of the 7.4% is for special ed. And as we delve deeper into the budget, you'll see that a lot of the increase is due to special ed tuitions, especially specifically out-of-district tuitions that are almost $500,000 the increase for next year. Some of the budget drivers, obviously specialized transportation, more special ed kids, more specialized transportation, as well as the overall cost of regular transportation. We're having a terrible time finding drivers. We're having increased costs, things of that nature. Gasoline, cost of buses. Buses cost us 2-3 years ago $80,000. Now they're up to around $120,000, $130,000 for a brand new bus. So those costs are increasing as we go forward. Enrollment increases, like I said before, our special education out of district placement up $481,000. That's 83.8% of the total budget. Regular operations, 3.7. Technology, hardware, facilities. There's some in here for additional capital planning as well as in technology planning. And then we're all dealing with increased costs for heating, oil, those types of things, which are baked into the pie. And those are the costs that require us just to keep the lights on. So that is a basic overview of the budget and the pie graph.
So the detailed packet that you have, we will skip through the first 2 pages, which is just a general summary of what Steve has just gone through. And if we move to your packet will be page 3. It will say page 1 in the left-hand corner, your first page 1 of your landscape document. And we're going to start there. We're going to go page by page and try to answer your questions between the 3 of us. But at the end of each page, we'll just give you all a heads up and see if you have any other questions before we move on. I will jump in on page 1. I will own that. Page 1 are your typical school committee and central office expenditures. So for those who were not at the November joint meeting, this would be the total budget was voted in November by the joint committees across the district. And Burgess's share, so one note is obviously that bottom line there is up a bit for 2 reasons. One, because your share, the piece of the pie for Burgess compared to the entire district is going up over 1%. So when we look at the enrollment, The other elementaries continue to either hold stable or decrease a little bit. Tantascwa is down as a district, I think, by about 40 students this year. So we've known for a while that the elementary was declining in enrollment. That's starting to hit Tantascwa. Burgess had a little bit of a decline for a couple of years and is coming back up. It's hard to say whether it's pre-COVID we had seen a dip, and we thought we were going to continue to see that. We're still sort of stabilizing coming out of COVID, so not sure if we're going to continue to increase, and keep in touch with the census in town, and everyone's crystal ball is continuing to look there. So the piece of the pie is up, and the note, there is a new, it really is a return line, the student support and compliance line. This is a position that we had in the budget for 2020, when we had it previous to 2020. In March of 2020, when everything shut down and everything was quite concerning, there were concerns about 20% Chapter 70 cuts. Central office, we reduced that position. We eliminated that position thinking that was the right thing to do. I still think it was the right thing to do. Ultimately, we didn't end up needing to cut all of the budgets, but we had cut this position and we move on. It was a position of support services, of compliance, overseeing homelessness, foster care, bullying policies, keeping us compliant. We're going to infuse a bit of equity review to be sure that we're meeting all legal requirements going forward. The biggest reason we need this back now, we've needed it all along, but the rest of us have just been absorbing all of these items. For anyone who does not know, Brenda Looney, who has been our special ed director for over 10 years with the district for 30 years, is retiring in June, which is a huge hole. She has helped build so many of these programs that we have in-house and has helped us across the district. Her departure is concerning, and she helped pick up a lot of these things. We need to clearly make sure we define what is special needs and what is other support services, get those things off of her plate back to that person. So we're going to fill that position to then hopefully have someone come in for the new special ed director and be able to keep us going the way we've been. So that is with sadness that I make those announcements for anyone who does not know that. But that is the point there, is to get that. It really is a return of a position we let go, and we can't go without it, knowing what we've got coming down the pipe. Anything else on that page? All right. Moving on. The biggest meat and potatoes on this page is your teaching salaries. A couple of notes. This is a negotiating year for the teachers, so there's a pool of dollars in there. You will see a number of other lines throughout the rest of the budget that appear to be level funded, that may not really be level. We move any contractual steps on that line, but as far as a pool of negotiating dollars, we put it on that one line, and then we'll transfer out after negotiations are done. We are going to change this line, though, are we not? So by the time we finish this public hearing, I will say, school committee does not know this either, we will be recommending a reduction of $50,000 to this line. We have, in the last month, been notified of a retirement that we can reduce. We're not eliminating the position, we just know we will replace at an entry-level salary to get this down, and we know we've got to get this down. So we're going to reduce at the end of this document $50,000 there. One other just note, there is about $50,000 of previously funded federal ESSER supports teaching staff in this line that we are trying to get off the cliff. So yes, when all is said and done, if we are in trouble, we still have one more year of ESSER funds. We tried very strategically to not spend it all in 1 year and build a huge cliff, but we're trying to get off of the cliff. And in the support services and mental health area, we know in a year we're not going to be able to just walk away from the services we put in this building. So there's $50,000 there that if we really have to, we could pay for one more year from ESSER, but then the cliff comes next year.
And this is still on
Yes, correct. So for sure, we're gonna reduce that line by 50,000 and then the end by 50,000. We'll get there shortly. Okay? What else is there? Kathy?
So you'll see on the line 215, integration assistant, due to a number of high needs movement students, we have had to increase our support to those students, otherwise we would not be able to have them here at Burgess. So we do have 2 additional paras that are in that line that were not in our budget.
And then we put those in place this year. So again, we're gonna tell the story of the out-of-district tuitions in a little bit, which Larry will have to hear again because he has heard in detail already a meeting with me. But even though we are struggling with out-of-district placements, we also are keeping students in-house as much as possible and working with the population. If we just have an increased population, mental health is hitting students of all shapes and sizes. And we at least have been able to keep some students and serve them in-house, but only with a couple of more aides this year that we need to continue. Anything else on that page sticking out or with questions? I'm on page 3. I'm looking at guidance testing.
That's, you'll see that is a sizable increase. There has been a number of grants that were providing us assessment tools for students. Social emotional rating scale was one of them, as well as some technology learning support. That has all been bundled here. Some of it has moved, well, obviously the grants have dried up, so that's a big part of the increase, as well as taking some of it out of software and moving it here. It's a district level license that we work off of, and it is a sizable increase.
Anything else on that page?
On line 340, I understand the wrap-up of grants. Those are, well, there's, I think, a few things. One is grantor has just stopped. Another would be that for some reason, further grants were not sought, or something else. What is the story?
They're not available. They were one-time grants to be used. Well, actually, one year we had one-time grants. This year we're using rural aid, which Sturbridge got for the first time, a little pool of rural aid, which allowed us to continue. And now that we've really worked with these assessment tools, Kathy deems them really important enough to keep.
There are benchmark assessment tools for children, so that's how we monitor progress, as well as an instructional tool that is linked to that assessment tool. And that replaces something that we would have been purchasing out of technology software that we're not going to, that instructional piece will no longer be purchased from there, so it's a change there.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
It's more out of curiosity. The
Mhm.
budget's actually down a bit. What textbooks are you replacing? I mean, that's what you usually do.
The textbooks, we're in the middle of math. Well, and again, what we usually do for textbooks, we try to enter into either 3 or 6 year deals. So we will pay in one lump sum 6 years worth of textbooks is these days most often online subscriptions. So there very few of them are hard, some of them are a little consumable, but yes, that textbook has become online subscriptions.
And we try to rotate
Yeah.
those subscriptions through so that it's not impacting one particular budget cycle, it's, spread out over the years, so it's worked out well.
Yeah, so we are piloting for 6th grade a math this year.
And for,
And next year
and for K through, right, this year we're piloting
Right.
for 6, and next year we'll be piloting for K through 5, and the reason for that is our current textbook, our current program is expiring, so we have to, so we're gonna look at 2 different, options, and we will be piloting that for next year.
We do try to, and again, in the world of textbooks that are now technology
Right.
subscriptions, then instead of needing to buy a new hard copy every 5 or 6 years, they change the platform.
They changed, yeah,
Oh.
GoNet's
So
changed
all of a
that
sudden,
platform.
technology is updated, you need to have a different platform. Yep.
Deb, do we know if we're getting that rural aid money yet?
We do not,
Okay.
it is a line, the problem with the rural aid is, we never know this early on. The governor's budget does have some, and we won't know until it gets all the way through the House, which is a frustration, quite frankly, especially for the very rural communities who would love to be able to budget it and plan it. And Sturbridge only got it last year for the first time, so they could change the formula. We could all of a sudden not be rural enough to get any at all, even if it does pass, so we can't really plan on it. Yeah, unless they change the formula. Anything else on page 3? Page 4. Steve's gonna have fun with this one.
I'll tell you my woes of busing here. Busing is up, like I said before, for obvious reasons. As we look towards the future, in this line item, a couple things people need to know that there's a terrible shortage of CDL bus drivers. Unfortunately, we have had very little success in recruiting new drivers, getting new drivers licensed. This is not only here, it's all over the state, but all over the country as well. And the state has not relaxed any of its requirements or anything like that. So it is very difficult to find people who want to have to go through all the hoops to become a CDL bus driver. Also, collective bargaining is taking place. The bus drivers are in the early stages of unionizing, so we shall see how that plays out in the future. And like I said, the cost of buses, the cost of gas, the cost of maintenance is increasing. What was once an $80,000 big bus is now $125,000, $130,000 big bus.
So that we do need to clarify, because ironically, while transportation is a huge, huge problem and full-time job right now, this section looks like it's a decrease. It's a decrease only for, it's a cliff is what it is. So first of all, your mechanic, we did have a turnover in mechanic. So that is a legit decrease in the mechanic's salary. We are negotiating for the first time, they have, it's the Teamsters that we're working with to negotiate a contract for the driving portion. However, the replacement of buses, it is extremely important to note that in fiscal '22, we paid about $160,000 for 2 buses. We've always been 2 a year. You've got a fleet of about 21, so if you do 2 a year, you've got 10-year-old buses that you're taking off. This year, it was $120,000 for a bus. And the supply, we couldn't even get to if we wanted them. So this year we bought 1. The only good news to that is we didn't use all of that budget in 172, so it's helping us with a little bit of our current year problem with tuitions to get through and minimize what we need to ask for. But next year, given everything going on, both the supply, availability of the buses, and the condition of this budget, we are only anticipating 1 bus for 1 more year. So a year from now, after going 2 years of just replacing 1 bus, we absolutely need to get back on and get the 2 a year. It is still absolutely, I wish it wasn't, but it is absolutely fiscally prudent to still run the transportation in-house. When we're gonna go out to bid again next fall for the other 4 towns, and I'm sure it's gonna go up enormously because of the driver cost, the fuel cost. As Steve said, nationally, getting CDL drivers is a struggle. If if any of you have any students in our building, you may have in the last couple of weeks needed to, or got the phone call in the morning that one run of children are gonna be a little bit late being picked up or dropped off because we've been so tight staffing wise that we sometimes need to double up. We're trying to be positive and get through, we have good staff, but it's.
Steve and the bus company have worked, they've done an amazing job, with, managing the shortages that we experienced right before break. But just imagine the inconvenience to a family of getting a call from me at 6:45 in the morning saying, I'm really sorry, but your child's route will be, 20 to 30 minutes late, or conversely, on the afternoon, telling them that their child will be, 20 to 30 minutes late coming home. So we, the driver shortage, you're hearing it everywhere, transportation, drivers are at a, huge deficit, and it is concerning moving forward.
And our neighbors are struggling too.
Life expectancy of the bus.
10 years is, we're not in any concern at all with the 10 years. And again, because the buses are mostly local. They run through them 4 times a day. But 10 has worked very well for us. Now, why do I have the confidence of having 2 years of just one? Is because we've also had to squeeze routes for the last year because of the shortage of drivers. So we feel like we're not gonna jeopardize the safety. We can get more than 10 if needed, but I think we're okay. A year from now, that 125,000, we hope will at least come down. But that is what it costs us for this year, and we've already put the order in for the one next year. We need to order it a year ahead of time, which is, we used to be able to go out to bid in June and have 2 new buses by September. So that line is lower anyway to get through this year. And then the other big bump there is your special ed transportation, which we are still also struggling with keeping the internal fleet, but we're plugging along. But fuel increases and general cost increases of supplies to keep them maintained is, plus there's additional placements. So all of our district tuition problems also result in increased specialized transportation costs. Everyone here, you've all seen it and heard it, so I'll be repetitive anyway, but the reminder that your special ed transportation, as well as your tuitions when we get to them, are for all Sturbridge students. Grades 2.9 to 22, or age 2.9 to 22, so that transportation covers all students that need any kind of specialized transportation. They could be coming here to this building, they could be going to the junior high and senior high, or they could be leaving town. And then mathematically on that page, we just back off what Tantascwa is gonna take. So everything above the negative line there is the total cost of the operation, and Tantascwa pays their half. I am now on page 5. We're gonna have one more tiny Sally Sunshine moment tonight, right, Steve?
Yes.
Fuel. Now, the number certainly is gonna go up significantly, and we know. Last year, we had a French River locked-in fuel rate of $1.69 a gallon. This year, we are paying $2.90, so we're gonna be short this year. We were anticipating when we built this budget a couple of months ago, I think it was $3.50. We locked in 2 weeks ago at $3.10. So tonight, we're gonna reduce that line by 18,000. So we'll do that at the end of the night too. So it's a little bit of good news. I don't know, a year from now, if it's down below $3, we'll say coulda, woulda, shoulda, but knowing is better than not knowing at this point in time. So the good news is it's at least a little, it's better than the worst case we were looking at. So we will subtract that. Other than that, we're just holding there in utilities. Any other questions?
Electricity, you part of a consortium or something, because that seems like
Actually, the town takes we are at the mercy of the town, who enters into, you've got a number of net metering credit deals, I believe, and I forget, if you told me the woman's name that you had as a consultant, I would know it when I heard it, but the town has had a consultant that they've worked with, and they include the school in their electricity bids. I haven't seen any huge spikes yet this year, so whatever rate, or the net metering credits might be enough that.
National Grid went up 32%.
Who's did?
National Grid.
Right, right, but I don't think, we have not seen that hit. Right, that's what the net metering credits are the solar back to the grid, so we're sticking with optimism, Jim. Anything else there? Page 6 is really just continuing that replacement of equipment, it's just your copiers. Then, okay. Page 7. Larry will hear it again. For those of you, I think all 4 of you were on the finance committee last year, right? So this is what's happened since we met with you last, either April or May. I'm confident that I looked at you and said, we've got a couple of tuitions already, but I'm gonna be optimistic and hope it's gonna work out. It did not work out. Since the budget, we were so excited to have a 2% budget. It was a good year last year for Sturbridge. Chapter 70 money was high, the budgets were low from a school perspective, so we were really happy to be in that place. In reality, we should have adjusted or at least talked to you before town meeting to say those tuitions happened, we can't ignore them. But we were hoping they were gonna flesh out. Since the budget that we voted last March, we have had, as I explained to Larry, 8 more out-of-district tuitions between elementary and secondary. 1 very expensive residential, and we have not had a residential for a while, but those are quite expensive. So we're absorbing about $600,000 this year. We're not absorbing it all because you can see the $200,000 problem. We did at the end of last year in June, because we already did have a couple of placements, as we mentioned, we were able to prepay $100,000 in tuitions, because legally you can pay a quarter's worth of special ed tuitions. So that's money that would have normally been turned back to the town because of grants we were working with. When we got federal grants, we spend that first. We knew we had these some tuitions and we prepaid. So we prepaid. We also used a reserve that we had, $200,000 in circuit breaker reserve to put towards this year's problem, which brought us to what do we think we really need to get through the year. So all of that was one-time money. That was the beginning of the cliff on the tuitions. These placements on top of that, the private tuitions, the state a few months ago approved an across-the-board 14% increase to the tuition. That is one of the #1 topics with the legislator right now going through is, I get it, and I get the decision was made because those very severe placement, those facilities, hard to find people, hard to keep the extra staff that they need for those very involved students. Of course, we're sitting here saying, well, we got some in-house programs, give me 14% increase. So it is what it is. We have sent letters to the legislators. Everyone knows for Sturbridge alone, that 14% is over $100,000, $120,000 of that across the board out of district private tuitions. So in addition to having 8 more, then they added a 14% on top of that. There is talk, there is chatter about some way of trying to get some supplemental budget or some circuit breaker adjustment. Right now, circuit breaker is funded at, the formula on private tuitions is 75% after a certain threshold. They're trying to get that increased to 90%. They're trying to infuse some one-time money because circuit breaker works in a way that when you pay 1 year, the following year, you get the reimbursement. Well, we gotta pay out this 14% increase. We're looking for maybe some front loading of that instead of the, my concern is, my optimism is by the time we get to June and we get through the House and the Senate, they will find some way to help the communities because this is a statewide crisis. I think there will be some way of more money, whether it's more circuit breaker that would allow us to reduce this number or some additional money. I'm just concerned that they're not gonna get through that until the end of June, and we don't know what to do in the meantime. So that is something we're watching. But here in town, we've had placements, we've done everything we can to serve these students in-house. The big problem is when mental health strikes, then it strikes students of special needs, for example, autism. We've got a number of dual diagnosis students that we could just no longer serve safely in-house for their safety as well as the rest of our students. And as hard as we try, it's certainly not just our community, it's a statewide problem, but it definitely was a perfect storm that they're not all private. I think we had a couple of collaborative placements, so there was some movement here and there. But that really is the story, and these are not anticipated. These are current students in the places they're at the tuitions that we believe they'll be, knowing that 14% for the private and knowing the other. Your Massachusetts schools, those are your Union 61. So the students, to give you some numbers to back this up, your Mass tuition line is to pay for 10 elementary students in one of your 3 Union 61 programs. We have them here, we have them Brimfield, we have them Brookfield. Also pays for 55 Sturbridge students that need summer services to not have regression. So they could be elementary, they could be secondary, they're small, there's summer programs at all 3 of our schools. And those are smaller money, but that's included in that first line. So those are all your Union 61, we're able to keep them here. Your private tuitions, that is 15 private tuitions. One of them is residential. And your collaborative, I think all of which is your Southern Worcester County Ed Collaborative, which is in Dudley. There are five students in that line.
And they're at max, just for a point of reference. That's always been a go-to for us, so a next step for students that aren't being successful within the Union 61 programming. We've always looked to the collaborative at Grove School, and they're having the same staffing issues that everybody else is having. So they're not able to accept the large number of students that for us that they've been able to in the past, or the level of need that the students have. They go to the Grove program and they're not being successful there, so then they have to go to one of the private schools.
Did I miss anything, Larry?
You did well, you get an A+.
Thank you, thank you. I didn't want to be repetitive. It is, and it's heartbreaking. And we've done, and we continue to work and monitor. And some of the collaborative placements, we do each year have 1 or 2 students that we're able to bring back into the building. And that is still going to happen. So the placements do sometimes change, but we did, it's not just us, as I said, our students are struggling. Our students are struggling. You want to go back just?
Well, I'm just thinking that the foundation is built off of lower enrollment.
Sure, for this year, right, and then we've springed up there. So, that all being said, with what we just talked about, at least, I'm going to recommend when we go back into regular session, that the school committee vote a figure $68,000 lower than what we've been looking at. So we're down to $13,506,465, that is the number I'm recommending, which is 6.9%. It's still certainly higher. I completely know that this is a struggle, and I don't have Tantascwa numbers yet. Tantascwa's not going to be this high, but Tantascwa has similar issues with trying to work with students in-house, dealing with mental health, dealing with the utilities, dealing with insurance and all that. But we're about a couple of weeks away from knowing what that will be for Sturbridge. But I fully anticipate we're going to be having a number of more conversations with my finance friends over the next few weeks. But at least tonight we're going to go to that 6.9. Kathy and I are already starting to talk about what we would have to do if we need to reduce, but this is the budget. that keeps us where we are now. It is not moving forward, it's keeping where we are now, and it's addressing the perfect storm between tuitions and utilities and trying to get off cliffs.
Could we turn back, please,
To the pictures?
to the charts, yeah, the graph chart. Are these two conclusions accurate? If, a word of background, if you overlap the graph number 2, the graph number 5, is the first conclusion accurate? That with bus costs, fuel, and so forth, and a major footnote on special needs transportation, school choice, academies, charters, that the principal driver of year-to-year change is enrollment. And second, the administration and the school committee have no control over enrollment, which makes the third conclusion, I guess, which makes the management of money and anticipation an art form. Is that accurate?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. The last couple of notes on that, especially, my school committee just got a report in the other room that had a higher than 883 students number. That's because your foundation enrollment is the state's enrollment. They don't count preschool students as full. If they're preschool students who have special needs, they're whatever portion they attend. So when you're trying to compare physical students in this building to that enrollment number, this enrollment number will be lower because they don't count preschools as full-time students, as they are not. And then, yeah, just to reiterate where Steve was, those special ed tuitions, if we just take the tuition line alone, just the increase in that tuition, and leveled absolutely everything else in the budget, we'd be up 3.8%. The 3.7 that we thought was regular ops, we just took $68,000 even out of that, so that's a lower, closer to a 3% increase for regular operations, including utility problems. I would argue is a respectful, in a normal year, submission, but we know this is not normal. And while the first numbers for Chapter 70 for Sturbridge do look decent, I think it was 300,000 to 400,000, it's just not enough to cover the problems that it is.
432.
Okay. Yeah. And that's driven because of the enrollment, so the good news is you're getting that because the enrollment's up, and that is what the Chapter 70 formula is based on. There are a couple of other elementary districts that have flat enrollment, and they're getting $30 per student. Yeah. And still dealing with the utility problems and some tuition problems.
Actually, I wonder if there's another conclusion, which is maybe an irony. In the constant quest for higher and higher quality, that encourages families to stay here or move here by reputation, which sends the census
Yep.
up, and with it comes cost, which puts, I guess, great pressure on being able to explain that there's an equal sign between the cost and the value. And if you look at only the cost, you're lost. Just as if you only look at the value. You gotta see them in balance, and it's an ever-shifting matter, because people live outside of paying taxes, even though at times that seems like all you're living to do. So there's an irony there, I guess, and great pressure on protecting the reputation, because that's a one-way street. If it tips and gravity grabs hold, it's curtains, I guess.
But our staff works really, really
Yeah.
hard to make sure that we continue
continue to deliver
Absolutely.
the best
Quality
quality.
needs, the
Absolutely.
people, the training, the hiring standards.
And there's, I so don't want to be pitting one population of our students against another. So it pains me actually to have spent as much time talking about a certain population tonight as we did. We've got to put it out there, but we're here to support all Sturbridge students.
Common goal, everybody to the best and most they can do. For some kid, 100% is here. For another kid, 100% is here.
Yeah,
But they're both
absolutely.
100.
You bet. All right. Thank you very much. The chair gets to close the public hearing.
Close the public meeting. It is 7:20. Thank you.
Larry, Larry, do you,
Almost do it.
it's available, sometimes you folks go from here into the conference room.
Yeah, you don't have your full committee. 7:24, you're reopening?
I am reopening, yes, at 7:24. Thank you, Mrs. Boyd, for keeping me so on task. Okay.
So,
Yep,
with optimism,
yes.
the only thing left to do is I recommend you vote to send a figure of 13,506,465 to the town for fiscal '24.
Okay. I will make the motion to send to the town for FY '24 a proposed budget of $13,506,465, which is a 6.9% increase. Is there a second?
Second.
Would anyone like to have any discussion or questions?
I just had one quick question. Any progress in filling Brenda Lynn's spot, and any chance that it could be someone who doesn't make? Would that impact our budget a little bit, or more retirements, or?
We've gone through round one. We'll have two finalists actually visiting you a little bit next week. So, I've set up two finalists that I strongly feel they need to have eyes on the programs we've built. So, they're gonna come back, spend a little time here, a little time at the high school to see some of those programs, and then I will interview them. I have not yet. The search committee kind of laid them down. So I think soon after that, hopefully by the end of March, I will at least have a recommendation. I can't tell till I get there what the salary will be. My gut is, it's not, unfortunately, it's not gonna save much. And to boot, even if I can save a little, then it gets divided by 6 budgets. So the impact to your budget is gonna be pretty minimal. Yeah.
And then you have that 24K, that's, essentially what an additional responsibilities that
Right.
she's taking on now that we'll be having a
Right.
separate person
Yeah.
doing, so that.
So my goal is to get that other person in first and take the brain dump from Brenda that isn't even special ed.
Right.
And
Yeah.
get that rolling, and then,
Transition that on.
bless Brenda, the only good news is she's not leaving the state. She knows I will be calling her, she will be like,
She's not
Lisa,
changing our number or
I drive by your
anything.
house
we
every
know where
morning
you
on my way
live.
to work.
She has put too much into this district, there's no way she's gonna let it fall
Yeah.
apart in her absence, so
Yeah.
I have warned her many times that you will be less retired than you think for the next year. And she's just been wonderful, so I just
She's
know
amazing. She's
it's
amazing.
the only way
She
I get to
is.
sleep at night these
Yeah.
days.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just like a technical question, like is what we vote on today is what goes to the town, or it can be
So
adjusted based
it's
on
what
more
formally, and you
information?
have the number, right, Larry? It's what formally we're saying today,
Yep.
we would like. They will start putting that number in their spreadsheets, look at what the whole town is asking for, and I will keep in touch with them. I'm sure I will be visiting them at least once. And when we get a little further down and we start hearing, how bad things are, we will still be looking at, and we may even come back to you next month with, if we need to reduce, here's some places that we would go first. So we would not be doing our jobs if we just said, let's wait until June 3rd or whenever the town meeting is to say, we have to cut, where would we go? So we'll start having those conversations, but so it's entirely possible that we would be voting a lower number before we get to town meeting, based on what we hear, but I'm gonna stick with optimism right now.
It's a good question. Whatever number the committee votes by statute is the highest number. It can go down, it can never go up after it's voted. And once it appears on the warrant, that number is a hard number subject only to going down unless at the town meeting the voters override. They always have the last word, subject to the state attorney general's review of all the proceedings.
Okay, so no pressure. If there's no more discussion, it is time to vote. All in favor? Okay, doing it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll keep you
Thank you,
posted,
thank you,
and
thank you.
by the time we're here next month, we will have a better feel too for what the other half of the Sturbridge students' request is gonna be on the Tantascwa end. So, once we get through both public hearings, I usually, even though we're a little bit dysfunctional and we are all these separate districts, I always say, let's combine the two and say, this is what we need for all students in Sturbridge, and combined sometimes it works out better. This year, I'm not so sure. We shall see.
Okay,
And all you have is to adjourn.
that brings us to the adjournment.
So
All in favor?
Awesome. Thank you much.